Episode 29 with MicWise from Trinidad and Tobago. We're going international. I'm looking forward to learning about the scene tonight. You know the motto, just because you rhyme doesn't make you an artist. And we're here to talk to some artists. That's what we do.
There we go. Peace, MicWise. Thank you for
Peace,
joining, bro.
peace, peace, peace. First of all, am I clear? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can, and the visual is crisp, which is good too. So that's dope.
Very good, very good, very good.
How's your day, bro?
The day was good. The day was relaxing.
Yeah,
Got some work done. Got some promo done.
yeah.
The
Nice,
week the
nice.
week has been the week has been productive so far, even though it's only Tuesday.
Dope, dope, dope. Yeah,
Yeah,
for me, it's the same old work, family, the
yeah.
show, the platform. So
Mm-hmm.
long days, but we're here, having
Yeah,
fun with the
yeah.
with the bars and the music.
Of course, of
So
course.
I want to flow Rogan go to thank you, Cameron. Thank you for joining. Just interviewed him
Yes,
in Pro
Paul Rogan is
Dillinger.
good. Yeah, 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 yeah. For
Thank
sure,
you,
for
thank
sure.
you.
Yeah.
So just wanted to let you know how I learned about you. I always like to start there. I've actually interviewed S twice. Um,
Oh, good.
and I remember he did some international collab. There was a video. It
Mm-hmm.
was S, Lendor, MC Ways, and
Mm-hmm.
yourself. So that was
Yeah.
Canada, TNT, Zimbabwe, and it was called Dopamine. And I thought you actually
Dopamine.
killed it. Yeah, yeah.
Produced by Rook Beats out of
There you go.
Trinidad as well.
Oh, is he from Trinidad? Because I saw he produced one of your albums. I was wondering.
Yeah, so he produced the whole Mad Scene album, and yeah, he is from Trinidad. He's been producing for local MCs in Trinidad for years now, and he's
Yeah.
good.
So,
Yeah.
so is he one of your main producers? Or
Right now, I would say yeah. I would say yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I
dope,
linked with
dope.
him. I linked with him kind of through Lendor. Around the
Right.
same time, I linked with Lendor. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like my first interaction with you was a DM from you telling me that you like my verse on Dopamine.
Oh,
That's how I
that's
got
right.
to
Yeah,
know
I
you on
remember that.
person.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to S. I actually know him back from the MySpace days, like
Mhm.
2008-ish. Somehow, my producer and his producer and his crew were kind of talking, because we both live near Toronto, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I know him actually from way back, but I just met him for the first time at a show recently. But how did
Mhm.
you guys all connect for that collab?
Okay. I linked with S around the time I released Hate 6 Hate.
Right,
So
dope album.
so
Yeah,
yeah. So that was in 2020. And it was someone by the name of Angelo Seeley,
gotcha.
also known as Legendary Skills,
Mm,
based in Trinidad, lived away. And he is a mutual person. He knows S. And he got me onto, like, he put me onto S and his projects, and he kind of made that link happen. And,
yeah,
we just kind of became fans of each other's works from there,
yeah,
supported each other's works as well. And then as time went on, that's when I linked with Lendor on a whole separate tip. And then Rook Beats, who was already from Trinidad, doing his thing
yeah.
down here. Well, I knew Rook because he been producing for men down here. So
Right,
yeah,
right, right.
but it kind of took Lendor to kind of connect me and Rook. And
Yeah,
first time I would say S and I connected was on that song produced by
right.
Rook, which is
Yeah,
with, as I said, myself, Lendor, S, MC
yeah,
Waves, by Rook.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think what you and S share in common with your music is you guys really stick to a topic. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've listened to a lot of his albums. I've listened to all your Spotify. You guys really stick to a topic for a whole like track. You don't hear
Mhm.
that often anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, he's
yeah,
amazing at that. S is amazing at that because he
right.
really has like concept albums.
Yeah, yeah.
He just kind
True
of
concepts. Yeah,
dials into one thing.
Yeah.
So
I,
I salute that. I salute
I
that. To be able to like hone in on one thing for a whole project.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what you did with Hate Six Hate, we're gonna get into that. That's my favorite album of yours. I think it's a damn near classic. I think I know what constitutes a classic at my age and the amount of listening I have, and I feel like on first listen, I was like, this is pretty much a classic. So, but we'll definitely get into it later
Yeah.
if you're cool with that.
Of
Quick
course.
quick question: what's the meaning behind Mike Wise, behind the name?
The meaning behind, so my name MicWise came from, I was, how old was I? I was probably about 17, 18 years old, and I was starting to like write my first rhymes and stuff.
Right,
And I was reading the newspaper about something, and the word streetwise came up.
right,
Streetwise. And it was
right.
obviously describing someone who is streetwise. And I
Yeah,
was like,
gotcha,
hmm, somebody who's wise to the ways of the streets or whatever. And I was like, huh, Mike Wise. I'm wise around
gotcha.
mics.
Makes
I was
sense.
like, it sounded cool, and I was like, let me just keep that. Mike Wise, cool. That's me.
Makes sense. So I'll also just get into what I like about your music. I like showing people actually listen to their music. I think that's one of the difference on my platform. I really get into it. I pick artists that I really like. So you really hit the mark with what you're trying to say. Even though you're doing multis, you're always on target. People have to listen. I've posted stuff, but people need to listen to it. I will quote some bars later. Like, are you well read? Like, I feel like you flex some good vocab in your bars, but it still sounds like natural. Would you say you're well read?
Yeah, I would say so. So all of this, you know, mastery of language, what people
Yeah.
like to attribute to me, this really comes from my father. This comes from before me even getting into hip hop. This comes from me being a child.
Mm,
This comes from him, like, always like impressing the fact on me that English is not just a tool for me to say hi, hello, how are you, what's up.
yeah.
English is beautiful, it's colorful. Uh, there's many layers to it now, So
Yeah.
he would always like show me like poems where there are like metaphors and
Right.
similes and alliterations and these kind of things. And he would explain to me what makes certain things clever, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
okay, this word means this, but they're using it to reference this, something else, So
Mm-hmm.
he always used to do that from ever since me being a little child. And he never used to be like, how some parents could make it quote unquote not fun
Right.
and kind of like, like kind of push it on you kind of way. It wasn't like that. Like he actually made it, interesting to me.
Yeah.
And I became fascinated with the English language from a young age,
Yeah.
from even before getting into hip hop or music in general,
Yeah.
And then the other side of it too, he was my family is very musical.
Mm-hmm.
So my father was a musician, uh, uncle musician,
Wow.
grandfather, granduncle. Like my whole family is either you play sports or you play music or you do both.
So did you play instruments or you just took, because me, I've been writing since I was 9 and stuff, but I suck with instruments.
Yeah.
But I can hold a rhythm, I guess, on a beat. But do you play instruments?
I don't play instruments. I've never attempted to.
Right.
At, at this point, I've never attempted to. Maybe one day, but
Gotcha.
judging by the genetics, I probably could like pick up something. But
Right. Right. Right.
maybe,
Right.
maybe in some years to come, I'll do a flute album. You know.
Gotcha. Yeah. Flute is gonna be the next auto tune.
Yeah, everybody gonna be on that, right? Everybody gonna be on
Yeah. Did you listen to that album? I listened to like maybe a third of it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Did you
that.
listen to it?
I heard a couple of tracks. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
But back to words, you know, I remember, you know, I would say like mid 2000s, you know, we all have internet at that point. I was like digging into like international hip hop. Like I got into UK stuff and like I've been listening to rap. It's the only genre I really know. It's the only genre I can give you a top five in. Since I was like seven, I feel like I've heard a lot. And I was like, I want to see what is the UK doing, you know? And I'm listening to the accents, the different vocabularies. Like that shit stimulates me. I don't just listen to like melodies. I like hearing what people are saying. I like hearing different words. You know what I'm
Different.
saying? Different punchlines. And I feel like that's what I get with you. That's part of the reason I was interested to get into your music and interview you. So yeah. So yeah, your punchlines, all of them sound like original pretty much, but you really like to stretch it out, and I think that's a hallmark of your style. So I'm gonna quote one of your punchlines um, off your recent album. You're like, "I'd rather battle face to face. Soon as you set a date, the way I serve in the ring, I do this too well to wait. Welterweight." I love that, by the way. "I need the belt or Ryan strike. Around celeb rappers, I don't stargaze because my pride on mics." Like you keep going, like you like stretching it out for several bars, and you do a really good job with it. So yeah, wanted to mention that.
That song was a whole stretch because every different punchline kind of bleeds into the other. Like
Yeah,
certain, you know,
yeah,
there's a lot of things. So when I say even, there's a lot of things people didn't even catch. Like when I say "give me the belt" or "Orion strike," like
yeah,
Orion belt. You know, this kind of way.
yeah.
You
I
know,
caught that. I caught that
yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
there's quite a few things that people didn't catch, but it's there. So repeat listens, people will catch them eventually.
yeah. Replay value. So, other than that, you know, going through your catalog, you pay a lot of homage to hip hop history. It's very clear. It means a great deal to you. It's evident in your bars. And yeah, man. So that's what I like about what you do.
Yeah.
I thought I'd ask you a little bit about Trinidad. You know, like obviously I'm from Canada. Grew up mostly near Toronto. Mostly been interviewing artists in the U.S. I'm from Canada, and I think it's cool. I'm talking to someone from Trinidad, so I wanted to ask you a question. Why is God a Trini? Can you let me know?
Okay, good. Because I was planning to break this down for the non-Trinidadians
Okay,
in in this live, including you, because the title "God is a Trini"
right.
would only make perfect sense to Trinidadians. So
Gotcha.
here's where the phrase "God is a Trini" comes from. God
Okay,
is a Trini is a popular saying in Trinidad that
right,
has been around even before I was born.
right,
So, where we live, we sorry, where we are situated, I should say, we really tend to get away from natural disasters.
Oh yeah, that's good.
So, like every major hurricane kind of comes across the Atlantic, and it comes
Wow.
like it's coming towards us, and it heads north.
Right.
Major earthquakes is not a thing. Um, Trinidad and Tobago is generally very lucky when it comes to
Wow.
natural disasters and a lot of other things that affect countries
Right.
around us, right? So the term God is a Trini
Right.
derived from that. So people started saying that it's like, hey, God is a Trini because we always get away from XYZ type of shit happening. That's
Yeah.
something Trinidadians say from ever since, right? It's meant to be taken in jest and not literally,
Gotcha.
you
Gotcha.
know, and that's just something that has been said, in generations past. And I decided to be like, well, to kind of flip it and be like, oh, y'all say God is a Trini
Right.
because everything is apparently so rosy in Trinidad. Well, let me talk about somebody, I could curse on this platform, right?
Of course, yeah. There's no kids
Yeah,
watching. Don't worry. I
of
curse all
course.
the
Yeah,
time, like a sailor. No worries.
I just making
No
sure. So
worries.
I was like, you know what? Let me talk about some of the fucked up shit that
Please,
happens in
please
Trinidad.
do curse. It'll make me feel more comfortable if you do curse. So go ahead.
I was like, you know what? Let me talk more about the fucked up shit that happens in Trinidad, and
Okay.
also let me talk about the some of the religious conservatism that is prevalent in Trinidad, and
Okay.
and also some of the religious leaders that have continued to abuse their power and abuse the vulnerable
Hmm.
in their respective, parishes and their respective places of worship, so to speak. So it's
You,
just
you,
taking that whole God as a trinity. It's like
yeah.
taking that and flipping it and throwing it back in
Gotcha.
a different way. Yeah.
You cover this in Hate Six Hate in some of the songs, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. Um, so I would love to hear more about it, but I wanted to ask you, what city are you from in Trinidad? Are you from a city there, or?
I am from San Fernando. That's in the southwest of Trinidad.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
How would you describe growing up in Trinidad?
Growing up in Trinidad was for me. I grew up in a like straight middle class upbringing.
Right.
I will not say upper middle class, and I will not say
Okay.
lower middle class. I was just like in the middle, so
Hmm.
to speak. Um,
Gotcha.
it was just pretty normal. I live opposite a play park, so that was very convenient for me as a child growing up. And yeah, it was it was just relaxed. I grew up with two two wonderful parents. As I say, my dad was heavily into sports and music.
Gotcha.
I was more musically inclined and musically inquisitive. My
Gotcha.
dad was my
It,
dad
it,
was into jazz, like jazz music and calypso. Calypso is like an indigenous music from Trinidad. Yeah.
so there's a lot of people from Trinidad and Tobago in Toronto and Canada for sure. Um,
Yeah.
is there a big middle class in Trinidad? Like how would you describe?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say there is. I would say
Gotcha.
there is. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I just want to test the waters, like how about the Trinidad music scene, because it's very interesting for me to learn, and I'll just start by saying in Toronto and Canada, it took many years for the hip hop scene to develop. I wasn't in the middle of it my whole life, but I was an observer since a young age. Definitely took years and years, decades actually, to reach where it's at now. But I wanted to ask you a question to test the waters. So I looked up, what rappers are from Trinidad, and I saw that Nicki Minaj is from Trinidad and Tobago, right?
Yeah.
Um, so would people from TNT like claim her? You know what I mean? Like, would they embrace her as someone from Trinidad? I'm just trying to get a sense of, like how people perceive someone like that.
Um. Well, Nicki Minaj is a tough one to answer
Co-
because obviously Nicki Minaj is a worldwide star, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. And the Trinidad public generally tends to gravitate towards, successful artists,
right.
especially in hip hop, right? So you would find a lot of Nicki Minaj fans in Trinidad.
Gotcha.
But the reason they are Nicki Minaj fans has nothing to do with her being Trini.
Gotcha.
It
Okay.
has to do with her being Nicki Minaj, you
Understood.
know, coming out through Lil Wayne, this type of thing. If anything, Nicki Minaj has had pushback from reasonably thinking Trinidadian people because early in her career, she had some very untrue, disparaging things to say about Trinidad,
Really?
where she likened her upbringing down here to be basically a dump, which is not the
Gotcha.
case
Gotcha.
because I know exactly. Uh, she would have grown up more in north of Trinidad. Like we know exactly where she grew up, and it's like, no, you did not grow up in a dump. She tries to categorize Trinidad as to further her own thing. She tries to categorize Trinidad as
It,
some kind of third world backwards country.
Is it to make it a her story sound like more of a story of struggle, like that kind of thing, or
Yeah,
just that
yeah,
kind of thing?
it's
Okay,
basically that.
understood.
It's
Gotcha,
basically that. Yeah.
gotcha. So wanted to get more into the actual Trinidad scene, but I wanted to start with, like, what's the first hip hop song you heard? Do you remember?
Hmm. Well, I will say, let me talk about the one that really like sparked that love in me.
Okay,
It was Lauryn Hill, Everything is Everything,
right,
which basically she sang more on that song than rapped. But that beat is hip hop. And
hmm
that one rap verse that she did, I fell in love with that song because of the verse where she rapped.
right,
And as I said, you have to like go back to when I said earlier, when I talked about just being a fan of like English and language and how words are constructed and just having that high level vocabulary, and then hearing her, you know, use these kind of words and rhyme and flow, and she had a flow that was just so in a nice pocket on the beat.
right,
I
yeah.
mean, so that was the one that got me to be like, yo, what is this? I need to listen to more of this, whatever this is.
Is that
And
when you
that's
knew you wanted to do this?
pardon?
Or is that when you knew you wanted to do this, or that
Oh
came
no,
later?
that is when I knew I wanted to listen to this.
Gotcha,
Cause that was the
gotcha.
first, because this was like I heard that in like '98 or '99.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
Lauryn Hill had a concert in Trinidad, so Trinidad radio stations were just playing her music like constantly, and that's one of
right.
the songs they happened to play, you know. And I just heard it at the right time, on the right day, in the right settings, and
hmm
yeah, that was it, you know.
So when did the Trinidad, like, hip hop scene start? Like what decade? Is there a clear starting point? Is it more in the 90s, like late 90s, or
I would say, could even say late '80s.
late 80s? Okay.
Hard to it's hard to even really give a set date to say, all right, this is the start. But there were MCs, obviously, the music reached here because Trinidad is a country like this. The
Yeah,
same movie, the same movies, Americans and by extension Canadians watch. We
right.
get that here. Same TV shows, same music, same everything. We get it. So like hip hop was definitely like Trinidadians were aware of hip hop, as far back as the '80s. In terms of when the culture started, um, I would say in the '80s.
Gotcha.
In terms of rappers making songs, that came in the '90s.
hmm Gotcha.
And then I would say the group that like did it on like a major level
Spot
in
rushers?
Trinidad.
Spot
Spot
rushers?
Rushers,
Yeah,
yeah.
I checked them out. I checked them out. Yeah.
But yeah, Spot Rushers. You did your research. I like that. Yeah, Spot Rushers. And one of the members of Spot Rushers, Chromatics,
Yeah.
he went solo and carved out a great lane for himself as a solo artist. He has done so much. I'll get back to Chromatics later in the interview. But you have Chromatics, you have Make It Happen, who released a classic album by the name of Ghetto Child in 2007.
Right.
Um, and yeah, like I would say from the 2000s come forward, that's when you started to see like rappers consistently put out projects and songs and this kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Music videos and all. Yeah.
I did peep Chromatics, right? So he was part of the Spot Rushers. I
Yeah.
saw. And I peeped a bunch of his songs, like really catchy stuff. It seems like he was a jack of all trades type of rapper, like he rapped many different ways. Is that a fair
Yeah.
statement? And many
Yeah.
different styles.
Yeah, I would say
Um, so why don't we get right into him? You wanted to mention, more about him later. I thought maybe we talk about it now. Like, how would you describe him to the scene, and like what does he mean, and what does he mean today?
yeah. Well, as I say, like great MC, jack of all trades. He had to sacrifice a lot. And being an artist myself, I could tell when someone is sacrificing a lot.
Right,
He easy type, he could cater to. I've seen him go abroad and rock North American crowds.
right.
I've seen
Oh,
him
really?
rock, yeah, I've seen him rock Trini crowds, obviously,
Hmm.
and he knows how to tailor songs to both markets.
Right.
So I admire him for that. He came out in the era where pre-social media, pre-streaming. So
Yeah.
hustling CDs. And let me tell you something. Like we hear about shout out to like Master P for hustling CDs out the trunk. In New
Right.
Orleans and not Cash Money,
Right.
but that's a hustle I admire. But let me tell you something. Trying to sell rap albums in Trinidad is not easy.
Uh, I can
That's
imagine.
different.
I can only imagine because. Sorry. Go ahead.
He used to do that. Him and DJ Pun and his whole Highway Records team used to do that, right?
Right.
Then he actually had all hip hop radio show. He got to host his hip hop radio show called The Grind on a
Right.
local radio station here. Did that for a while. Then he relaunched with his own internet radio station, which he has now. It's called AOR Radio.
Hmm.
So he has his own radio station that plays all genres of music from Trinidad, but they only play local acts.
Right.
So most of the radio stations, most of the popular radio stations down here, they play very little local music.
Right.
Most of what they play is American, Jamaican, Afro beats,
Right.
very little Trini. But he has a radio station that plays all genres and all local. It's
Wow.
called
And
Our Radio. Yeah.
and it has a big following or a solid following.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely a solid following.
Wow.
He has built it up to a very high level, and he's proven that you know the Trinidadian public want to hear Trinidadian artists.
So he's like holding down the whole scene. It sounds like he's a like
He is
critical
he is
critical.
holding down underground music in Trinidad and Tobago.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
One thing that I wanted to ask you, like I remember in Canada or in Toronto, if you were mistaken to be someone from New York, like that was a good thing. You know what I mean? One thing I
yeah.
noticed going back to some of the music, I can't really hear the accent or it's being masked. Is that a fair statement? Did the Trini scene go through a phase where you maybe you wanted to sound more American in the beginning, or
Oh yeah.
or were there American people in the groups, or like I'm not sure. I thought I'd ask you.
Yeah, we have had an identity crisis here in Trinidad for
Right,
a very long time.
right.
I would say every rapper at some point has fallen victim to that, myself
Yeah,
included,
yeah,
because we've had a lot of rappers who just down here who rap in an American accent because we just think that's how it needs to be done.
to
You know.
this day, to this day.
Um, there were plenty who started. I was one in my early days because you've heard some early stuff where I was rapping in the American accent.
I could have mistaken you for an American. I mean, it sounded dope, right? And I understand that
Yeah,
you gotta, the scene is developing and artists are, so
yeah,
I completely get it. But yeah,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So I would have started, and then eventually it just felt like a costume, so I stopped doing it, and I just started to rap how I talk, which
Yeah,
is what I do now.
yeah,
Um, there are many rappers who rap in the Trini accent, um, and there are some who still persist with using the foreign accent, and I feel like I don't know, every few months, every year, there is some sort of debate that just kind of springs up that comes across my feed
right.
amongst the Trinidad hip hop community in terms of, okay, what way is right? Rap in the Trini accent or rap in the foreign accent or what? And I'm like,
Yeah,
to me, the most important thing is the bars,
yeah,
and if you could make it sound good. Now, I personally encourage rappers from down here to rap in their local accent
yeah.
because I think that's authentic, and I think that people from outside of Trinidad would want to hear us in our authentic tongue,
I
right? So
think I think personally it adds flavor, but I think I might be a minority. I don't know. I think it adds flavor. I like tapping into international stuff. Sometimes I'll
yeah,
even tap into something in a different language just to hear the texture of the rhyme, like how it sounds, how they're doing it. To me
yeah,
it's interesting, you know what I mean? So yeah.
yeah. But the thing is, there is so like there are some people where there is like a pushback. There is a pushback against rappers who rap in the Trinidadian accent, which is disappointing. So like even just a couple days ago, like I saw there's a rapper from down here, right?
Right.
New rapper. He has a podcast, and he was interviewing someone else,
Okay.
and the two of them were basically saying that if you're a Trinidadian rapping in a Trinidadian accent, that you're basically limiting yourself to Trinidad, and that foreigners don't want to hear that.
Hmm.
And that if you want to be international, you have to rap, you have to sound like Lil Wayne, Drake, Kanye West, Jay-Z, these type of guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and hearing them speak like that and hearing them say certain things about, because they had a whole, by the way, these are two Trinidad rappers, and they had the world of things to say about rappers from here.
Hmm.
And then that, you see, that's a whole other conversation about Trinidadians tend to have a self-hating
Gotcha.
inferiority complex kind of thing about them.
I think like again, I'm just comparing experiences. Me
Yeah,
as an observer in Canada, I think we went through that phase also, to be honest with
yeah,
you. So I can
yeah, yeah,
actually relate to it more than because again, I've been listening since the 80s, 90s,
yeah.
so it took time for Canada to get where it is today, to be
The,
honest.
the
So I
thing,
can understand.
the thing
Yeah.
with Trinis, the thing with
Yeah.
Trinis, and there are Trinis in this chat right now, in this live. And
Yeah.
if I'm lying, they could comment and say that I'm lying. But
Yeah.
I feel like Trinis we have a way that, not we as in I'm part of this, but Trinis in general have a way that they like to discredit their own, and they like to bring down their own.
Gotcha.
And if a Trinidadian is trying to excel in any field, whether it be music, sports, business, whatever,
Facts.
we
Yeah.
like to say,
Yeah.
we like to be like, okay, we see ourselves as here, but
Yeah.
because you try to get up here, no, we have to bring you back down to us.
Yeah.
Who are you to think that you could go from here to here? No, you stay down here with
Mm,
us, right?
right.
So engineers in the chat, engineer now say facts, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
basically what it is. So all of that lends to an actual rapper from Trinidad saying that, yo, no one wants to hear us in our Trini accent because our Trini accent is backwards and primitive, and it's kind of ashamed of how he talks now.
So
You know?
so I wanted to so Trinidad has 1.5.
Colonial mentality, correct, engineer? Yeah.
Gotcha.
Comments, yeah.
Colonial, gotcha. So Trinidad has 1.5 million people. I looked that up on Google. Does everyone know everyone in the hip hop scene? Pretty much. Is it one of those cases?
Does
or
everyone know everyone? More or less.
more or less?
And
Gotcha.
even if you're like a new rapper,
Right.
now coming to the scene, you eventually will get known by everyone else.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Which country in the Caribbean has the biggest market for hip hop? Do you know? I was curious.
Hmm. In terms of consuming their own people
Just
or just hip hop.
just the market for hip hop. Like, I know like in Europe, like France has the biggest market,
Yeah.
I believe. You know what I mean? Germany. If I stumped
Can't,
you, that's cool. No worries, but I just
can't
thought I'd
I
ask.
can't answer that. I can't answer that for sure. If I
Gotcha.
knew the answer, I'll tell you. But I can't answer that for sure. Maybe if someone in the comments knows, they could tell me. But I don't know that for sure.
Gotcha. And just to me, it's just interesting. Like to this day, I find it interesting that hip hop spread, everywhere, even though it's like a staple everywhere. But how many radio stations? So are there other radio stations that cater to hip hop though, besides Chromatic? Like he caters to locals, but are there hip hop dedicated stations in Trinidad, or hip hop
No, no,
centric kind of stations?
no. The major radio stations, what they basically play is foreign hip hop.
Mm,
They play Jamaican dancehall, Jamaican reggae, Trinidadian dancehall because there are Trinidadian dancehall artists that get played. They play soca. Soca is our Trini indigenous music.
right.
But funny enough, soca does not play outside of the carnival season a lot.
Gotcha.
So, like, even our music, like our genre that originated here, doesn't get that much play outside of, let's say, from December to Carnival. Carnival is like in February, usually, right?
Gotcha.
Um, R&B is played here. Afrobeats is pretty big here now. So, yeah, that's
So
about it.
So in Toronto, I was talking to a producer. He's been producing a long time. Even when I was like actively like rapping and putting out stuff like 10 years ago, even he was known back then. But he was telling me today, like currently, that even in like Toronto, like you see Drake and you see all these young up and comers, that the industry is still not really fully there, even in Toronto, right? So I
Mm.
was wondering, like in uh in Trinidad, like just to test the maturity of the scene, does anyone make a living off of music, like hip hop music at this point? Maybe you don't know, but I'm just trying to know because I know there's even there's legends in Toronto that I don't think they make a full-time living to this day, off of it. Some newer artists probably do, but
Mm.
just wondering if it's reached that level of maturity.
No, nobody makes a living off of hip hop music in Trinidad. No.
So it's a labor of love,
So, yeah.
basically.
So like what happens, you have like there are rappers here who they do other things like they might own a studio,
Right.
so they make money from the studio.
Gotcha.
So there are rappers I know who produce, so they make money from beats. There are
Gotcha.
rappers I know there are rappers I know who do like graphics, like artwork,
Gotcha.
so they make money from that. So like there are rappers who make money from like just the entertainment sector, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
but not from like their music or rapping per se, you know.
Gotcha.
Me, I dabble with like ghostwriting and stuff,
Hmm.
and
Oh,
I
really?
dabble with
Okay.
ghostwriting, and I
Yeah.
also I well I told you I engineer, mix,
Yeah.
master my stuff, so I have
But
clients through that. So it's not just we making money through our music. You kind of have to find another lane
yeah.
to you know make money. And
Well,
plus,
you're. Oh,
and
go ahead.
then
I cut you off. Go ahead.
most would have a 9 to 5 as well. You know.
Gotcha. I think
Yeah.
most artists, period, anywhere, but it's
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
interesting to know how high it goes. By the way, your engineering is amazing. It's really good. Are you
Try
self-taught,
even better.
or are you
Try
self-taught, or
Pardon?
are you self-taught, or did you go to school for that, or?
Self-taught. Self-taught.
Gotcha. It's really good. So, how would you describe? So I'm just learning of the TNT scene. You're kind of my entry point, to be honest.
Mm.
I see you getting interviews, this and that. You're battling. You know what I'm saying? You've been putting up music for quite some time. Like, how would you describe your position in the TNT hip hop scene?
I would say I'm definitely one of the most. I've been. I'll be real. I've been the most active down here for a few years.
Wow.
Yeah, in
Right.
terms of the amount of work I put in, the amount of work I put out, and I would say that I would say I'm more or less satisfied with my level of respect. I think based on the quality, I don't
Yeah.
really care about the quantity, but based on the quality of material that I put out, I think my respect amongst the peers is sufficient.
Yeah.
Because, you ask
Uh,
rappers from down here about, you know, hip hop down here, and I tend to hear my name being called where I think it should be. So,
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed your catalog. I listened to everything on your Spotify, some of it more than once.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, and on top of that, I could perceive that you hold weight in the scene. You know what I'm saying? So it's an honor to talk to you, man. Anyone that has forged a name for themselves in any hip hop scene, to me, it's really an honor to talk. So yeah. What do you think is the next level for TNT to hit, like for the scene? Before we get into your music, if you have the time, if you're still good for time, what do you think the next level to hit for the scene is? Like, what would be some good milestones?
The next level, I think what all Trini MCs need to do is think beyond the borders of Trinidad and Tobago, as you would see that I try to do. You know, Trinidad is very limited. One, two, especially if you're a lyricist, you're not gonna get
Right,
that appreciation here in Trinidad because people are not going to catch what you are doing. People are
right,
not going to understand your skill level. People are not gonna appreciate what you do. I have seen, without calling any names, I have seen too many gifted lyricists from here
right,
try to adjust their style to fit a Trini crowd. And what you get is, in my opinion, subpar music. And I
right.
hate it. And
Yeah,
my advice to them, and I've told them this personally, I'm not going to blow up anybody's spot, but I've told them time and time again, hey, we are in the era of the internet. Your music can reach wherever.
hmm,
Start trying to, connect with MCs from abroad, connect with bloggers from abroad. Same thing, same way how you and I here speaking.
yeah.
You
I
understand?
mean,
Just start to make connections and like try to see beyond Trinidad, right?
right.
If you're able to travel, who said if you're able to travel and go to different spots, better yet, go. Just go. I'm not saying forget your fans in Trinidad.
Yeah,
Because if they are true fans, they will follow you wherever you go. If
yeah,
anything, they will become even like stronger fans when they see you actually doing your thing abroad.
right.
So like there are a lot of talented MCs. One of them is even here in this chat, Engineer. He commented
Hmm.
a few things a while ago. Shout out to Engineer. I
Salute.
worked
Thanks
with
for
him
joining.
a couple times. Lendo is here, S is here, you know. Um
I
just
I'm
just
not
just think beyond Trinidad and take your talents as global as you could take it.
I'm not going to claim to be an expert on blowing up. That would be a false claim. But I think that
Me neither.
Nate,
Me neither. That's why I can't give like the best advice, but
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
most.
I just think making it in music is such a I respect the grind because it's such a difficult one. I've had a taste of it for more than a few years as like an organized artist, and I think you might as well be authentic and go out on your shield. You know what I'm saying? And see how far you
Yeah.
can go. That's kind of where my head is at. But yeah,
One life to live. Put your confidence in your work. Like,
right.
don't hide and do it. Don't hold back. Like,
Yeah,
if you believe you're the shit, like, make those moves. Go out there.
yeah.
Do it with your chest. In other words, you know.
So I dug through YouTube and I caught a video about you. You about 7 years ago. You're talking about the possibility of moving to America. Also, your first album on Spotify 2018, it's called Leave. I think it's maybe tied to that kind of theme. Have you ever seriously considered moving to the US?
Yeah, yeah. That's where that song came about. There's a song on Mad Scene as well called Seven, which is
Right.
also like a sort of sequel to a song called Visa, where I talked about leaving Trinidad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, I thought about it. Um, you know, the thing with leaving Trinidad is, and that I wrote. I write from that perspective sometimes, where I speak
Hmm.
about leaving Trinidad, and leaving Trinidad is a sort of like leaving your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I talk about that, when I write about that, I'm kind of speaking on behalf of other Trini, not just Trini hip hop artists, but Trini artists in general, just Trini people in general.
Yeah.
Leaving Trinidad is sort of leaving your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's certain other ramifications to leaving Trinidad. So, you know, being from the Caribbean, look, a lot of us look a certain way. So,
Right.
for being black in Trinidad is a different experience from being black in
Right.
America
Right.
or Canada. You know,
Yeah. So that would be a pretty big
me,
trade-off,
yeah,
right? Huge.
me specifically, my mother is East Indian
Right.
and my father Chinese and Spanish mixed up, right?
Gotcha.
So I'm mixed, and then for me, going across there, people will assume all kind of things about my ethnic background.
Hmm.
Trinidad is the last thing they would say, but they might assume other things, right?
Right. Right.
There is there is just the fear, you see a lot of things on news on social media, things that happen, and
Yeah.
there is that kind of fear of, you know, being attacked for the color of your skin, how people perceive you,
Right. Yeah.
this kind of thing. Things that, we don't have to encounter in Trinidad. Now, in Trinidad, there is discrimination, I would say, against black people in terms of
Hmm.
being hired for certain positions, not just hired in general, and getting promotion, and there is that discrimination here. But I think it's pretty obvious to say that being black, you could face a different level of discrimination when you go to a place like the States.
Hmm.
You
Right.
understand?
Yeah.
Then you have someone like me down here. It is like after what, 11 here? That's no. Yeah. It's after 11 here at night. I could come off for this interview and like go where, right? I don't know why my screen got dark. Anyway, yeah, I could go wherever after this interview and walk the streets normal.
Yeah.
In the States, that might not be the case depending on where I am.
Yeah.
That's something. That's something that Caribbean people have to think about. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of where. So, I did a song called Visa talking about that, and that's where the thinking came from. You know.
So it's a big trade-off. It's a big trade-off. Um,
Mhm.
so in terms of battles, before we get into the actual music, I watched one of your battles. Um, And you told me, well, how would you describe the battle scene in Trinidad?
The battle scene is a work in progress, but for there to be progress, there needs to be more work for it to
Right,
be a work in progress.
right.
So to me, there are not enough events.
Hmm.
Need to have more events um, for the battlers to gain more experience.
Yeah,
So that's the only thing I would say. But there are people behind the scenes who are trying to put together events and who I would think do a good job when it's time to put on events. Shout out to Sneaky with Word War of Rhymes Division, one of the best leagues down here. Shout out to Kino Nocturne, BGR Spitfire.
yeah.
I actually battled, shout out to BGR, I battled BGR Spitfire recently. The battle is not out yet, but that was a great back and forth between them. There are people who trying to make it happen, but sometimes getting stuff off the ground in Trinidad is hard work. But
Yeah. I remember when King of the Dot started in Toronto. That was
yeah,
pretty
hope that.
interesting to watch unfold. It was definitely,
Yeah.
I definitely followed that. So you told me you watch American battles, but when you're battling in Trinidad, you kind of have to scale it back on the lyricism a bit. Is that is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah, yeah. It's easier. It would have been. It's actually easier for me to just go to the peak of whatever my lyricism is at that time than
Yeah.
to scale. Scaling back is tough because you don't know how far to scale it back.
Right. Right.
And I'm like, there are some things like I write punchlines and metaphors and double entendres
Yeah.
revolving around certain things. And I'm like, does the average Trinidadian understand this reference? And
Yeah.
then you have to go into the battle hoping that they do. You understand? Because again, like ever since I started battling, like I'll watch like a Rum Nitty or a New Jersey Twerk or something, and I'll watch them and I'll be like, yeah, if you said that in Trinidad, nobody gonna react the way the crowd react.
Right. 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 Right.
You know, because like Rum Nitty, like Nitty especially, like he'll come with the most obscure reference, and I'll catch it, and the crowd will
Yeah.
catch it. But
Yeah.
Trinidad, not gonna catch that at all, at all.
It's like your head is light years ahead of the average person audience, right?
It's not even about being ahead of the audience. It's about one. I think they are just things that Trinidadians don't pay attention to
Yeah.
that just happen in the world. So I can't really make a reference out of that one.
Right.
And then two, then the other thing is, I think what I've seen with Trini crowds will show up to a battle and they will just kind of casually listen.
Mm.
To me, if I go to watch a battle,
Yeah.
like I'm not even drinking. If I go to watch a battle, I'm not even drinking any alcohol or anything.
Right.
Like I am staying sober for the battle because I want to hear everything.
Right.
I'll have a drink after the battle. Like I want to
Right.
catch everything, every reference, every little scheme, every
Yeah. Yeah.
this thing. And I feel like Trini crowds don't do that,
Right.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Right. It sounds like a matter of time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in terms of your albums, Hate 6, Hate 2020, I think that's your best album. Personally, because it's so purpose filled. Like every bar is to describe something or to tell a story. There's no filler, there's no waste, and it's about something greater than yourself. Um, so what's the meaning behind Hate 6 Hate?
So the area code for Trinidad and Tobago as a country is 868.
Okay.
So that's where I did just hate 6 hate.
Right.
And I just wanted to make an album that dealt with the reality of this country.
Hmm.
So as I mentioned, our indigenous music, well the popular indigenous music that we have right now is soca.
Yeah.
And a lot of soca music is festive and nice and fun and come to Trinidad, come to Carnival and very colorful and it'll make you want to just leave Canada and come to Trinidad, right?
Right.
When you just see the spectacle and see the videos and stuff, which is all good. I think Trinidad needs that. But there is a whole other side to Trinidad that I feel local Trinidad music kind of ignores and kind of doesn't speak about. So we have soca, which I just described.
Yeah.
Then we have gangster rap.
Mm-hmm.
So we have local rappers who do that. And then we have rappers who do like the club records and this kind of thing.
Right.
And we have dancehall.
Yeah.
Which is obviously dancehall music originated in Jamaica, but there's a big dancehall scene here. Right? And most of the music is from the perspective of the streets.
Right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of, gun references and this type of thing. And I feel like music was just kind of being made from, okay, well, I live this kind of life. I speak about this. Yeah. I want to be festive and have a party, so I'm gonna speak about that. And
right.
I just felt like our music scene needed a certain objective truth. Now, obviously, it's not totally objective because it is my opinion on a lot of things.
Right.
Right. But I feel like we just needed something else, like some kind of
to counterbalance it. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to share my experience. The area of Toronto I'm from was largely like Russian immigrants. So my parents are from Russia. I was born in Canada.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, I put out a song about my neighborhood, nothing aggressive, just about growing up. And my friend put it in a blog. He wrote for a popular blog in Toronto. The next day, the biggest newspaper called me and like, this is so cool. We want to write an article about this. And like, the song went viral. I took it down, but it went viral. And I just was reading the comments, and people did not know how to perceive me because I was like, in my area, it was like the first of its kind. Like, who is this guy? Is he being a gangster? What is this guy? You think they actually understood did people receive the album in the way you hoped it would? Like, they understand what you're trying to do, A, with the hip hop, B, with the messaging?
Yeah, they appreciated it because I spoke about a lot of things that have not been spoken about in certain detail. So when people hear me talk about like Randolph Burrows, for instance, who was like the biggest crooked cop in Trinidad in the 80s. Right. When people hear about like Akil Chambers and Sean Luke, who were two innocent children, whose lives were taken from them in a very gruesome and deplorable way.
Right.
For me to bring back those stories and talk about, even people who were current at the time, Gary Griffith, who was the commissioner of police, who was, Gary Griffith got his schooling from Rudy Giuliani. So if you know about Rudy Giuliani in New York and his ways, yeah, he's trying to do that, something like that in Trinidad. And obviously the two major political parties, the UNC and the PNM, for me to speak about them in such a descriptive way, it was a first. So people it just kind of like smacked people.
Would you say this is a once in a lifetime album, or do you think you'll have another album like this?
This is a once in a lifetime thing because that's why like it took me a while to do it. It took me a while to release it because I
Right.
made the songs, and I made it in a way that I am going to do this, and I am going to cover everything. I don't want to talk about some things and then do a part two. No, I want everything to be there. So like I talk about the way we as a society treat women,
Yeah.
how we treat children, how we treat, at that time, a lot of Venezuelan nationals were coming here because of the crisis in Venezuela, because Venezuela is right below Trinidad,
Right.
right? So I spoke about how we treated Venezuelan immigrants, on the song Gabriela. Gabriela is a storytelling song, but when you really dig deep, it actually tells a lot about how we treat Venezuelan immigrants, especially the women, right?
Mm.
And yeah, I wanted to cover everything. I talked about like white collar crime. I
Yeah.
talk about I talk about tourists who come here thinking it's a good time, and it's really
Yeah.
not that. So I wanted to like cover all bases. That's why like I made the album, and I sat with the album for months,
Oh
just
yeah.
listening to it over and over. Like, do I have anything else to say? Do I have anything else to say? Just repeating that question in my head over and over before I felt comfortable in releasing it.
Yeah. And that song "Colors" you mentioned, it's a play on Colors. I believe Ice-T released that song in
Yeah,
1988. I was a
yeah,
kid
yeah,
when it came out, and I
yeah.
was listening at that time. So I'm like, are you doing a homage to that hook?
Mm,
Yeah, so that was dope, that concept. The second verse on Terminal, which is about, adjusting the perspective of these outsiders or travelers or foreigners, coming to the country
yeah.
and think it's one way. That
Mm,
second verse was fire. If it's cool with you, I'm gonna quote it. I'm probably gonna butcher it a bit and miss a section of it, but
yeah.
so feel free to connect me. Think it's all coconut trees and sweet calypso. Since the media wouldn't, I'm gonna release the info. Jack Warner with the Onion had them crying tears. They think we intellect is low, disrespecting though, in hysterics woe. Bitch, you better know it's the strength of goat,
It's the
stripped from
strength
head
to
to
go. Yeah.
of go, stripped from head to toe, of independence, yo, been neglected so. Infants led with no assistance from assistant bent for those who live a separate code. Privileged men with no hint of letting go. They grip of fiscal privilege. Yo, I'm thinking head should roll. That was like some rapid fire shit.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything hitting the target. So I
yeah,
appreciate that kind of shit as a real hip hop
yeah,
head. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. That's lyrically, that's my favorite song on the album. Just as you
Yeah.
say, like the rhyme structure. Like that's
Yeah.
one where it was like, yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about defending vulnerable people in society. You have that tune. Um, just wanted to ask you, and you engineered that as well, so that's dope. So just a couple more things I want to point out on your catalog. On your 2021 album, Dirty Pages, More Dirt, you got a track called When I Wake Up, and you know the rapper struggle, it could sound kind of played out sometimes when people emphasize that, but you did it in such a brutally honest way that
Mm,
it left an impression with me. So if it's cool with you, I'm gonna quote some parts of that part of that if you're cool with that.
that's cool.
um you're like, didn't even leave with Junior, you could have blessed and left the gift of precious life in the womb for the next generation. Explanation, you were trapped in greed, found enough time to do dirt but couldn't plant the seed. And what about the wasted paper? A rap career that never made it major, a decade-long failing wager. Like, you really just get into it about what you're sacrificing doing this.
Yeah. So
You
that
know what I
that
mean? So,
that verse
yeah.
was the verse was from that verse was from the perspective of the Grim Reaper talking to me before he actually takes me away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is like death telling me that I wasted my life, just wasted paper, and wasted paper could mean money. Wasted paper could mean the paper you write your rhymes on.
Yeah.
This kind of way.
I think that's something all artists, in the grind think
Yeah.
about ongoing and fluctuate, right? It's a fair
Mhm.
statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So the degree of difficulty, that's your most recent album. That's really, I listened to it, I'm like, man, he could put together a dope album. So That's kind of what pulled me in. Definitely aesthetically one of your best albums. Your closing track, Autonomy, I love those opening bars. That was super hard. What's the meaning behind the title, degree to difficulty? The degree of difficulty.
The degree of difficulty is the fact that, as an artist, as a communicator, I could communicate these ideas in a much simpler way. If I,
Right.
here I am, like, every time I sit down to write, I always seek the most difficult path in terms of, rhyme scheme, rhyme structure, wordplay, metaphors, punchlines, double entendres, this kind of thing. Like,
right.
So people who listen have to know that, yeah, you're impressed by it, but it's a difficult thing to do, it's a difficult thing to master it.
Yeah.
And the degree of difficulty, the thought process comes from, just as a kid, like watching Olympics back in the day, when you have sports that, so obviously when you watch like football or basketball, there is a way to, even individual shit like tennis, like there is a way to score these games, right? Like there's a clear winner and a clear loser. When you have something like synchronized swimming or diving, it's up to judge, or like gymnastics, it's up to judges to like judge your routine, right? And one of the categories they judge on is the degree of difficulty in whatever like routine or thing that you choose to do.
Right.
And so when you enter these sports, you have to choose or develop a routine that is as difficult as you could possibly do. Which is how I am with like writing. Like,
gotcha.
Sometimes I am like that. What is the most difficult way I could craft this verse?
Right.
Funny,
Right.
Like
right.
sometimes I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes I do think like that.
Gotcha.
So that's what.
So in this album, you talk about things like substance abuse, toxic relationship. How hard is it for you to put that in your music? Because honestly, I think I respect real artists that go to like their source of pain, because there's not always there's no monetary reward up front for doing that. You know what I'm saying? So you really put it on the line. But I wanted to ask you, like, how hard is it for you to get into stuff like that? Did it take a lot of mulling over before you, like, we're gonna go there?
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, some of the stuff you talk about was like, it wasn't necessarily myself, if you understand what I'm saying.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but like,
Understood.
so like in terms of personal struggles, so the song Spiral deals with my struggle with anxiety,
Right.
in terms of having actual panic attacks and whatnot.
Right.
And that was, people will think it's difficult to write a song like that, but that's one of the quickest songs I wrote for the whole project, because I'm not ashamed of it. It's something that I go through. It's something that a lot of people go through. So I don't understand, like, I don't feel a stigma with it. So, and it's easy for me to write something that I'm actually going through.
Right.
Because I know what's happening already. So it's like, I don't need to, like, let me see if I could research this topic, or no. It's just like, yeah, I know what I go through already. So,
Gotcha.
right? And in terms of like, so like 27, is where I touch on not necessarily personal substance abuse, but the whole, remember we were talking about something you shared about artists who suffer.
Right. Yeah, the post. Yep.
Entertainers pretend to suffer.
Yeah.
Whereas artists make art about their suffering.
Yeah.
It's the whole thought process of the quote-unquote tortured artists, and the fact that society seems to romanticize the trauma that plenty artists go through, and the struggle that plenty artists go through, and that sometimes if an artist comes up from a sheltered upbringing, like society is quick to like, well, downplay them. Society loves the struggle.
Right.
You know, the society loves an artist who is like
The
going
the
through
the, the
like
extreme the
mental.
extreme struggle. It's hard to be an artist of nuance. It takes a very perceptive person that can describe everyday shit. You know what
Yeah,
I mean, and turn it into music, in my opinion.
yeah.
Um, so I got two questions to close it out. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Thank you for your time. I've enjoyed the conversation. Um,
mhm.
you seem to be a person that strives to bear their soul on the mic. Why is it important for you to do that?
Because why not? You know, at the end of I only gonna have, you know, one career.
Yeah,
I think I think life is short. I think we all have a limited time. So I wanna like I wanna get my shit off. I wanna say what I wanna say what I have to say. No.
yeah,
And that also goes into the thinking of, so like, now you interview a lot of underground artists who release like 2 and 3 and 4 and a million projects a year, right? So
not all of them, but some of them
yeah,
hit
well,
like multiple. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Like a lot of the underground artists you would listen to and I would listen to release multiple projects a year. That is
Yeah,
not the that is not the norm for down here, right? Cool. So a lot of people down here ask me, why do I not only record so much but release so much? And
right.
the reason is because it's there. It's not my music to keep. I need to get this out into the world.
Yeah,
I don't make music to just sit down home on my laptop here and listen to. Like, I'm obviously making music to release. So why am I just holding on to it?
yeah,
You understand this kind of way? That's my level of thinking, and it's the same thinking in terms of the content. Like, I have so much in my mind. I have so many thoughts that I need to like get out. Why am I holding that back? One of
right,
my greatest fears, greatest fears is being at a stage where through illness or old age or something, where I'm on like, you know, just sick in bed or on my deathbed, and I just lie there with like regrets, like
right,
yo, should have released more music. I should have talked about this in my music. I should have done
right.
this, done that. I should have done that. No, when it's all said and done, I need to take my last breath, knowing that yo, whatever I had to say is out.
You
It's
said
in the
it.
world already. It doesn't matter if 10 people listening or 10 million. Like, it's
Yeah.
there, you know?
So, spoken like a true artist. Here's my last question for you. In your
Yeah.
mind, what's the next level for MicWise?
The next level, I don't like to think about next level because to me, I could only control what I do.
Right,
So, which is keep working.
right.
I have no control over how people receive me, you
Yeah,
know, what they think, if they
yeah,
want to support me, if they want to invest in me, if they want to share me with their friends, if somebody at a label wants to sign me, which is a whole other thing. But
yeah.
like to me, it's just all about the next level is just more work, you know, and
Right.
that's what I've been doing. That's what I continue to do. Wherever it goes, it goes. I just want to make music and also not just make music, but also like put it out correctly. Obviously, I'm not just tossing out music and right together. You all have that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you
Yeah,
want to make sure that it reaches more ears than the last time. So obviously, you know, we think about expanding the marketing and we try to make moves to learn more about the marketing and excel in that field. But overall, it's not about all right having this set goal. It's just about, you know, to keep putting in the work and to make sure that, you know, with every year, with every month, with every project, you know, we reach more ears and more
Spo
heights.
spoken like a true artist. So,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for opening up the TNT scene to me and everyone that tapped in. I'm going to be talking to more international artists. I think it's dope. I'm intrigued, you know, to see how hip hop is spread, where everyone's scene is at. To me, that's interesting stuff. I want to give a quick shout out to people that have attended. Who do we got? Pretty Dot Ugly. Salute. Thank you for joining. Lambo Phil.
Everybody.
Tricky, Icky. Is that Christian? Many others. Holy Jigga and more. Any final words? And we got S still in the house. Thank you. Any final words before we depart? Or actually, wait. What's next? And then final words. What's next? Any new project you're working on, or we're focusing on this one?
What's immediately next? I have a couple more visuals from the degree of difficulty.
Right.
Coming out. So, you know, when that will, one of them will drop this year. The other one will drop probably January. So stay tuned with that. In terms of next projects, you know, I have 2 albums already finished.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we have Family Tradition, that's the next one, and then Dirty Pages 2. So those 2 are done. Family Tradition is done. Dirty Pages 2, I need to like lock in some features for that. But yeah, and I'm always working, so it's definitely not only those 2 projects coming next year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely gonna stay tapped in. And any final words before we depart?
Final words. First of all, thank you for having your platform. This is I told you this already. You know, this is like one of the best platforms right now for underground MCs. So
thank you.
So everybody who's tapped in, if you ain't following yet, follow. You know what I mean? Don't just get hip to me, but get hip to all the other artists that you've been interviewing. And yeah, shout out to everybody that's been supporting. Shout out to everybody that is planning to go and support. You know, I have 3 projects. Well, 3 projects that's been done this year. So we have Degree of Difficulty, that's the most recent one. We have Mad Scene, produced by Rook Beats, and before that, we've had He's Wise, which is a collab album between myself and Heezy Hines. I must big up Heezy Hines all the while. You know what I mean? So
all really good albums. So thanks again. Thanks everyone, and have a great night.
Yeah, man. Peace.
Good night.
Yeah.